and Pep the blue ox. Pa Puyan was a giant lumberjack. He stood 63 axe handle high, give or take a handle. When Pa shouted timber and swung his axe, and 100 trees could fall. Back in the Pa days, America was growing fast, and people needed wood to build houses and towns. Farmers needed wild land cleared so they could grow crops. Paul showed an early talent for knocking down the trees. As a baby, he rolled over in his sleep one night and knocked out a mile of man forest. He always knew he'd be a lumberjack, and soon it was time to follow his dream. I'm off to go to log the North Woods, he told his parents. Good luck, son, they said. Watch where you step. Paul got a job at a logging camp. Chopping down trees was easy, but he wishes he had someone to help him haul the logs to the rivers. Then came winter of the blue snow. Beautiful blue snow fell for days. Paul came across a snowdrop as big as a house with two hairy blue ears sticking out of it. Moo! It softly bellowed. Paul lifted those ears, and out came a sickly baby ox that had been stuck in the snow. The ox was blue all over from the cold. Paul brought the ox back to the camp and cared for him all night. In the morning, the ox feeling better, but his days blew. He licked Paul on the neck. Paul laughed. I call you bad, he said. They went off through Michigan, where Paul set up his own logging camp. Pep grew like crazy and soon was so big that folks could hardly see him end to end. None of the local watering holes were big enough for Pep to drink from. Paul solved the problem by using as to dig the Great Lakes. Paul logging camp was filled with hundreds of lumberjacks. They were a hungry bunch, and their favorite foods were pancakes. More pancakes, please, they called, but the cooks couldn't make enough. Sourdough said the chief cook feared that the men would quit if they didn't get more pancakes. Don't worry, Sam, I will solve this, Paul said. Paul sat and thought about the problem a while. Then he and Pep disappeared. About a week later, Pep returned to camp, pulling an iron griddle. That griddle was a mile wide if it was an inch. Paul had it built in the big cities. When Sam saw the griddle, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. Now we are cooking, he cried. Paul ordered a fire built on the griddle. Pep, eager to help, drank all the water out of the lake. The cooks used the empty lake bed as a bowl to mix the batter in. Men dropped slabs of bacon on their boots and skated around on the griddle. When it was all greased up, the cooks poured their batter. Soon 500,000 pancakes were bubbling on the griddles. There was even pipeline syrup going straight to the tables. The lumberjacks were finally happy, and no one ever quit pot camp. Those pancakes got too good. When the logging was done in one spot, Paul simply left the camp onto the wheels, and Beth put it into a new place. One day, they sat down their camp next to the twisty river in Wisconsin. That river was so crooked that the logs of the lumberjack sent floating down would end up in an awful jam. For weeks at a time, the sawmills down rivers were waiting for logs that never came. Paul sat picking his teeth with a pine tree while he thought about the problem. Paul had to oil his blacksmith forge a chain. He hooked one end of the chain to Beth's harness and others end to the twist in the river. Pull, Beth, he commanded, and Beth pulled. Squeak pulled up Beth, but the rovers could budge. Harder, Paul said. Beth grunt and pulled harder. The muscle on his neck stood out like tree's root. His leg dug in the earth, and his belly nearly touched the ground. But that old river was as crooked as ever. Then Paul saw the bend in the river gave a shiver. "It's working!" he cried. Beth let out a bellow that heard all the way to Kansas. He gave a mighty tug, causing the rivers to snap like a whip. Then, with a crack, it lay strange as a flagpole. Everyone cheered. Paul stuck out his chest with pride so much that his buttons popped off his shirt. Paul and Beth went to do many more great things. They were last seen working in the vast wilderness of Alaska. Folks up there say they still sometimes hear a mighty voice in the woods calling out "Timber!" followed by a rumbling moo.